Friends, welcome to the Worship Circle podcast. And I'm really grateful today for this next couple. They've been an encouragement and a gift to me in my life on this journey. And it's just going to be fun, you guys, to talk about a little bit of your history and how it intersected with this ministry. So, welcome, Aaron and Janie Hoskins.
Hey, glad to be here.
Where are you, just tell everybody where you're located right now, like where God has you planted and what you're doing right now.
So we are in the northeast section of Dallas, Dallas Fort Worth, in Wiley, Texas.
Wiley, Texas.
Yep.
Yes.
It
You have to look it up too.
It reminds me of Wiley Coyote.
Yep.
What's the largest town that's near that people would know?
In terms of DFW, probably Plano. It's just a little bit east of Plano.
Okay. And I saw something online the other day where Texas can literally hold like 8 other states. Like the landmass, it's a big old place, and you guys are fortunate to be in. And the people that live there, man, they treat it like another country. It's like,
oh yeah,
Texas is its own.
And I think you might know this from history, but we have it in our when we joined the Union back in the day. Texas has the legal right to secede from the Union and be its own nation. So
yes, it does. So
proud.
tread lightly on our Texan friends. And we were just there with the story conference, and guys, Janie really helped organize a lot of that. So for those of you that were there, Janie, thank you. And Aaron's just been a voice of wisdom and encouragement on our team. He's been a group leader with Charlie Hall for quite a while now. And Aaron, one of my things I wanted to say off the bat, I was in a season where I wanted to be in a small group. It was like 3 years ago. And I was in Charlie's group, and you were the group leader. And I just appreciate the way you cared for my heart during that season. And so we're all in this thing together. So where did you guys come from? Are you both native Texans? Is that the story?
Yeah, we are.
Wow.
But we didn't meet here or get married in Texas. So
How did you guys meet?
So I took my first worship position at a church in Little Rock, more of a extension campus in Benton.
Right.
But I wanted to live in Little Rock because I just knew at the time I was a young single guy. I needed to meet people and be close to people my age. And so went to, what any single guy does. You go to the singles ministry thing.
There you go.
And
y'all roller skating and, I'm kidding.
Kickball. So, yeah.
Kickball,
there you go.
same thing.
And saw this beautiful girl and wanted to get to know her. And she and her roommate were some of my first friends in Little Rock all together. And long story short, found out that she and her roommate were my next door neighbors in my exact same apartment complex, like same building, same floor. So yeah, that's how we met and began friendship and dating shortly after that.
Janie, were you plugged into ministry world at that point, or were you like headed toward this via Aaron?
I was not interested whatsoever in being in ministry. My story is quite a complicated one when it comes to church. I grew up in church. My mom worked there. And so I knew all the kind of ins and outs of church world. There was a lot of things that happened in my youth growing up that just really jaded me towards church. I love Jesus.
Yeah.
I loved him with all my heart. I've known him since I was 6. So it was never that. I just kind of didn't like the organization of the church and a lot of the hypocrisy that I saw. And so, yeah, church and being in ministry was not in my plans.
What did you want to do like before you met Aaron? What was your dream?
I was definitely headed for corporate America.
Okay.
I had a business degree, marketing, and saw myself climbing the corporate ladder and doing that. And God radically changed my heart. And that's my story is, I stay home with my kids mostly and love being a mom and a wife and serving in ministry. So it was a radical change for me, for sure.
Well, your kids are awesome. I saw them at the story conference, and they're mini me's of both of you. So it's just
100%.
Yes,
it's kind of crazy how God does that. And Janie, it's cool because I know that you've got mad business skills, and God's able to use those with the ways you serve other people now, and it's really cool to see. So Arkansas, how did y'all get to Texas? How long were you there ministering, and then what was the next step?
We were in Arkansas for 7 years, got connected to our next ministry assignment through a mutual friend that pulled us from Arkansas to Fort Worth. So that's kind of when we came back to Texas. We were super glad to do that. And at that time, we had 2 kiddos, and our youngest, Sophie, came while in Fort Worth. So she's a Texas native, and been in that was in that ministry assignment for 11 years, and then God led us to our new ministry assignment where we've been in Wiley, Texas, for about a year and a half or so.
Man, that's crazy. A decade, and now you're at a new spot. Well, we're going to get to that kind of transition in the season you went through with that. But you guys, what year did y'all come to Rest Retreat? We were having it at Woodlands Camp in North Georgia. First of all, for those of you listening, this episode's going to kind of be to steer you toward the Rest Retreat. It's one of our points on our journey with worship leaders and spouses where they can connect. So just describe, how did y'all get connected with this whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, again, a series of random connections. I've always enjoyed and I've appreciated the ministry of Meredith Andrews.
Yeah.
And so I had a random person I didn't even know reach out to me through a Facebook group that I was nominally a part of, because it's so huge, and said, "Hey, join us for, would love to really appreciate your presence as we're going to be talking to Meredith. Would you want to hop on?" So I hop on, and then it's there where Meredith plugs Worship Circle.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly how from there to you, but before I knew it, in about that week's time, I was getting a phone call from this sounds funny, but from the Todd Fields, who I knew about, and I was like, "Who's he? Why is he calling me?"
Man,
and
I'm sorry.
honestly, it's your buttery Georgia accent that sealed the deal for us. I was in.
Yeah, I don't even know I have one, but when we were living in California, people were like, "Hey, you sound country."
Yeah, buddy.
Well, man, first of all, I'm glad I called you. I don't remember that call because I call so many people,
Yep.
but in the early days and even now, I just love a spreadsheet and numbers and names, because behind every number and name is a generational story,
Mhm.
So I don't look at anybody in this world that I have the honor of talking to. So I'm glad I called you. What was the next step? Y'all said yes to this. You're curious about the Rest Retreat. Janie,
Yep.
were you wanting that, or were you like Aaron was like, "Hey, come to this retreat thing"?
Well, it wasn't even the retreat itself.
Okay.
It was the actual program that got us connected at the time, because it wasn't Rest
So you
Retreat.
jumped in the program first.
Jumped right into the program, and
Okay.
it was a kind of a faith leap, because I was like, I don't even know, I can't afford this. My ministry doesn't have
Right.
the funds for that. But a long story short, we just felt like, man, I feel like there's enough people that probably have been. And it was through your encouragement and many others that said, enough people have been blessed by your ministry, you don't know. And this is a way that they want to express their appreciation. And so, sure enough, took the leap. And before I knew it, really within about 2 or 3 weeks, I was fully funded for the program, which culminated in Rest Retreat at the end of the year. So yeah, Janie's portion of getting invited and going is an interesting one.
And whose small group did you jump in?
Paul's.
Reverend Balash.
Yes,
Father
sir.
Paul. Faja Paul.
Papa Paul.
Exactly who we needed.
Papa Paul. And so then you went to Rest Retreat. What was that like? Were you guys, what did you guys think we were going to do there, first of all, before you got there? Did it surprise you in what we did, or were you like, this is what I thought it would be?
I don't think we knew what we were expecting. I mean, we've heard, we expected like for me to meet people. And I think, Jenny can speak to that, but I think there was a reservation as to why I'm here, because I'm not a worship pastor. And so I'm nominally connected, but I'm not even musical. So what is there for me initially? But you can probably expound on that.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, our kids were very small.
Yeah.
And it was a big ask to ask somebody to come stay, and cart our kids around and do all the things for a week. And so it definitely felt like, yeah, why are we doing this? Why are we going through this? But Aaron was very adamant that he wanted me to be there. And so I was like, okay, but it felt kind of like, I feel like we're gonna be talking like tech stuff and like how to program a service. I'm like, I have nothing to contribute to these conversations.
Right. Yeah.
And I knew no one. I mean, Aaron had made relationships obviously through his group and, being a part of the program. I knew no one walking in. And then in that season, we were walking through something really difficult and carrying that into that space. So I felt very emotionally vulnerable and guarded walking into this space just because of what we were experiencing at the time.
Mm.
So that was kind of, so I didn't know what to expect. And I certainly was probably not the most open the first, first day we were there, because I was just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
What was like, how did God meet you guys there? What happened?
Mm. Man, a number of ways. Honestly, it was initially, I mean, sure, there's an initial draw and an interest in maybe your first retreat where you get to meet some of these faces that have been in your home on the radio, and you just, there's the little kid that gets to meet, Paul and whatnot. And so while that is still great, what was probably the most surprising and the biggest blessing were the complete strangers that we were hanging out with most of the time in our cabin. And with our particular situation, the couples rooms had run out, so we had to split guys and girls in the
Oh,
same
wow.
cabin.
I'm sorry.
So no, and we loved it.
It
We
was fantastic.
absolutely loved it because we started to affectionately call it the True Love Waits Dorm.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And the husbands would wait in the hall for their wives to come out of their room. It was the best.
Hysterical.
But it was because of that awkward space that we got to build some really good friendships with the guys and the girls separately. And we had come into that particular retreat deeply wounded and hurt by our church, and by our ministry context. And so we didn't even know what we needed, but we just needed to be with people who get the job, get the role of particularly worship ministry, and also just not having to explain it, but just go, yeah, we get it. And so we were able to kind of dive right in to some of the details of what we were grieving, and they just came around us. They were the ones that were waving us down, complete strangers, to sit in that massively long lunch table, and they wanted us to sit with them, and it was like just to feel pursued and wanted. Was such a gift. Does anything come out of your mind there?
Yeah, well, and I remember, it was very heavy for us because we were, walking through something really, really hard, and we were in the middle of it. It wasn't like, oh, this happened. Like, it had just happened. This was like
wow.
January. All of it had kind of unraveled in December for us. And so it was a lot of fresh hurt. And I just remember them, like, one, just, yes, shouldering it, letting us cry, letting us grieve, but also laughing a lot with them. And there was so much joy and so much laughter. That's just good for your soul, to be around people that just make you laugh and want to have fun with you, pursue you. I think for me, especially that year, we broke out of large group into small groups, and Aaron obviously went with the group that he had been with, and Paul. But you guys had set aside spouse group. So there was a woman's spouse group and a men's group. And I went with the women. And I remember as we began to share, people would start to talk. And I, of course, was not the first to talk, but other people began to talk, and everyone is shaking their heads. Like, everyone is going, I understand what you're saying. I understand your experience. And that was the first time for me being a ministry wife where I felt so seen and so understood, because ministry is a different context.
Yeah.
And there's unique challenges that come with being the wife.
Right.
And there's just not a lot of people who get that. And so to be in a room filled with other women who understood exactly what that's like was special, especially given where we were coming from, just to be able to everybody go, yeah, totally get it. And there's not a lot of explanation needed because we're all walking the same journey. So that was extremely impactful for me.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you're just like, there's just understanding and you're able to be seen.
Yeah.
And I've seen that. What did y'all come the year we did the Hymns album, or was it before that?
We were there. I think our first time was actually the year before then, the Hymns album.
Yes.
And so
that would have been 2018. Y'all would have come.
Yeah. So there were so many moments, but particularly, I just remember that first year that we were there, feeling the presence of our friends that we continued to Zoom for many weeks and months after the fact, just to kind of circle up and check in. And it was through their constant encouragement, and also just the things that, when you're going and you're raw and you're wanting God to kind of just say something, anything, just to make you feel seen. And when you get into a place like that, and the beauty that it was surrounded with, the gathering of the saints, like, he was speaking all over the place, even in the quiet, in the encouragement of friends, you'd hear a theme that would go all the way through. And it was, for me, I remember very specifically, I was, as we were pulling to go home and leave the rest retreat, and we're pulling out, turning left out of the camp to
Yeah.
go. And there's this, it's just, for me, it was super emotional for me because I looked up, just happened to glance. What was out of the side of my view was like a fawn, grazing on the grass right there. And there's this huge sprawling field that goes up this hill. And then I looked again, and it was gone. And it was just, for me, it was like God was just saying, makes me lie down in green pastures. All of the Psalm 23 restoring my soul. We felt so restored, even though we knew we were going back to what felt to us like a hot mess waiting for us. But we felt like our spirits were saying, God's got us. He still sees us. He's with us. And just gave us a framework to be able to be okay where we were at and seen and loved. And yeah, it was pretty transformative for us. And at that point, we were like, oh, this is going to be an every year thing.
Yeah.
Golly, that's so encouraging because, yeah, I'm just thinking about the 12. I think we've done Rest Retreat for 11 years now. And I forget. You guys talked about coming out of a hard situation, and I think people listening, we're all going to have those, And we actually had a session. What came to mind when you were talking about that, Aaron, Charlie Hall taught yesterday, and was just talking about how the church is the bride of Christ. And I just feel like the phrase church hurt is going, like, it's rampant right now. There's just, I think our inability to pay attention to our individual help is catching up with our desire for numbers and growth in the kingdom. And those things are basically falling apart. Like, they're disconnected, and until they integrate.
Yeah.
And until health and operating in the rhythms that Jesus modeled, which, John Mark Comer, other people are teaching about that right now. And I think there's a resurgence of humans, as Steve Cuss says, wanting to be human-sized versus big or small. And so Charlie was just reminding us that, usually it's not about the church hurting you. It's usually a person.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so as we talk about this and you guys come to Rest and you've been in this ministry, one of the things we've been doing is this work on our own journey and our own story. And I remember Adam Young saying, people would be like, how can I take care of my kids better? Or how can I do this better? Or even for worship leaders listening, how can I lead better? Or how can I be a better staff member or team member or lead my team better? And what I hear you guys saying, and what I want to echo just as a way of interjecting here, is that the best gift we can give ourselves and our immediate family and everybody around us is a well self.
100%.
And for us to be tended to, and that's not like popular.
No.
What are you guys seeing? I want to get a little bit more of your story here in the latest season, but you guys are kind of connected to different worship leaders in the Texas area. Are there some themes you're seeing, with mental health and soul and heart and job transition? Like, what's it look like in the landscape of as a whole? Like, what are you sensing right now?
I am really sensing a desire for the leaders. There's kind of two things that I see. Is I think they are really wanting a more real, authentic encounter with Jesus and with the people that they're leading. For them, it's like, and I think there's a little bit of a disconnect because there's a lot of great tools that we utilize to try to foster that, but there's not a lot of substance behind it in their own life or in their community that helps them really have that. Like it's like the tools have become the thing, not simply what it is, just a tool. And so for them, I think the leaders that I'm seeing is that there's a hunger to be connected to each other. But as we all know, it's so easy to become so siloed to our own ministry because we're trying to serve and build and do and create and not be, but with God and with each other. And so I sense tremendous hunger to be together and to be seen in the team. So there's overemphasizing the tools versus properly emphasizing relationship to God. And that's the right thing to say. We all know it. We could, no one is surprised to hear that on this podcast, but it is really a practice of discipline and pursuing the presence of God in my life.
Yeah.
And doing that in a community of leaders that are pushing me towards that. And I know that for a lot of leaders, they don't even have that in their own church. Oftentimes they're in a church context where it's driven, it's majorly driven by the leadership to achieve, excel, grow, like you were saying earlier, like be better leaders. But it's more outward rather than what's being motivated from the inner heart. And so I'm seeing that trend in hunger, and I'm seeing the things that used to work to grow churches not working
Yeah.
anymore, not as well. And I think people are asking questions like, is this all that there is?
Yeah.
In the church services, and wanting something deeper and more meaningful. And I believe it's Jesus. I believe we can give them Jesus, but oftentimes what we give them is not that on the front end. He might be the last thing that we try to sell, but we're trying to give them an experience, and we're trying to give them all the fluff. Which again, not to minimize the fluff. There's all purpose in it, but I don't know. I'll stop there. But I feel like it's been overemphasized, and I think the church culture.
Well, I would just add to that, like, I think people just want to encounter Jesus. Like, I think they want like a real, genuine, impactful encounter with him. And, I know, like I said, I've been a believer my whole life. I've been in church my whole life. And I had never experienced like what I experienced at Rest, which was this we don't have lights, we don't have, all the things, right? It was super stripped down, but it was just honest. It was just honest conversations and honest worship. And, Aaron and I had conversations, and the way I describe it is like that the layer between heaven and earth in that space was so thin, like the Holy Spirit was so thick. And that is what I now crave. Every Sunday I'm walking in going, I want that again. How do we get that here? How do we bring that here? And that has become such a passion of ours, is like, after you experience those kinds of encounters with Jesus, like, you want everybody to experience that. And I think that is what we all need. And so, like, as leaders in the church, I think we really have a passion for trying to do that in the best way that we know how. We can't fabricate it, but we certainly want him to show up, and are asking for that. And we'll use our talents and our tools and the things that we're given to try to facilitate that. But it's really the heart and the posture of just begging him to show up and to do it again, be here.
Thank y'all for your vulnerability and sharing that. I think there's probably a lot of listeners that can identify. You guys, in the world of ministry, there's seasons for all of us, and there's doors that open and doors that close. I was talking to a friend the other night. He's wanting to be plugged in as a worship pastor at a church in the Atlanta area, and just asking me about how to go about that. And there's just a lot when it comes to calling. There's a lot when it comes to being placed in a location. And I know you guys recently went through a door beginning to close, and kind of like, hey, God's moving us somewhere else. He's leading us toward a new season. That's going to happen. It's happened to me. It's happened to all of us. What was that like for you guys? And just maybe share, like, in real time, the things you had to hold in that was messy, hard, but also hopeful.
Yeah. Actually, well, if it's okay, I would like to hear my bride kind of go first.
Come on, Janie.
Okay, yeah. I think we began sensing that God was doing something before we really know what he was doing.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of confusion. Aaron and I are both super loyal people. We're very committed to the places and the things that we say yes to. And so and we dearly love the people that we get to shoulder ministry with. And so as we began to kind of sense that, I think it was just a very confusing space, first of all, like, to just, I don't God, I don't understand what you're doing,
Yeah.
and there was, for me, a lot of emotion, especially as a mom, because it's not just Aaron's job. It's not just our community, which we had a beautiful community in our former context, one that I still very much grieve at times because I had just a beautiful place and some
Yeah.
wonderful women that I got to walk life with, and but then also my kids, and I'm going, God, what are you doing? Like, this is not exactly the most ideal
Sure.
space to be moving my kids. And so there, yeah, just a lot of confusion but also just for me, also having this like deep sense of like God's nearness in that season. I felt
Mm.
so incredibly close to the Lord. Um, Even as I was holding
Mhm.
so many emotions that I didn't want to feel.
Mhm.
But being able to be honest, with him in those spaces and just feeling his comfort and his goodness. And that didn't necessarily make the questions answered or the anxiety go away. But it certainly was comforting to know that he was with us in that space. Yeah, because a lot of it just it happened. There was like, we were sensing things for a while, and then, like, when things began to move, they moved very, very quickly. I'm
Yeah.
not someone who likes to move very quickly, and I do not like change,
Mhm.
Yes.
and so walking through that with the Lord, and just even at times being angry, like,
Yeah.
"Why are you doing this, and why are you doing it this way?" And all the
Yeah.
things, and then but also having, like I said, we had some great community there, but then also, like, having our worship circle family to be able to, like, reach out to and process and have them hold both the confusion and the anger but also a little bit of the excitement of, like, I'm not really sure what God's doing, but I hope he's doing something really good.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered the
No, that's
question.
good. Yeah. I'll add to that just to go that we had, like Janie had said, we had been sensing a shift. We never really synced up in terms of like when that time was. What we
Sure.
knew, there was many respects where we weren't surprised when God made it clear. It wasn't like we were completely caught off guard in that regard. And what's wild for me, and I don't know why God has chosen to do it this way up to
Mhm.
this point in my life. But you know how, like, when you're a kid and any parent that knows, like, with your kids, like, you usually give them a 5 or 10 minute warning before it's time to go, so that they don't
Yeah.
completely melt down when it's time to go. And I feel like it was interesting. I was having a conversation with one of our spiritual directors at Rest, and it just occurred to me, God has always been so kind to kind of cue a next turn in
Yep.
advance, and it might be a week, it might be a day or a few hours. And in this past instance with our most recent transition, it was a pretty day, and I just had lunch with some friends, was going back to the church, and I felt God speaking to my spirit. When I'm guys, anyone who's listening, I am Bible church Baptist background, so God speaking and Holy Spirit stuff, has been a little bit more foreign to me as I've grown
Right.
up. But it's become something I've learned to learn to listen as
Mhm.
I've walked with Jesus. And I heard him say, it was odd because it's what made me pay attention. I heard him say, "Steel yourself, like get ready," and that was it. And I was at that point, I wasn't afraid, I wasn't fearful, but I was paying attention,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and I knew he was with me. And yeah, and then within a few hours, I had a really difficult conversation with my pastor that was telling me things are changing.
Yeah.
And so, do I wish that the conversation and decisions and things that were said were done differently? Absolutely. That's where our pain and our hurt come. It wasn't the decision for transition. It was the manner of which it was delivered. And like you said, it wasn't the church. It was a few people, few
Yeah.
individuals that kind of led that. So that's where it's like we held this immense grief that didn't carry it alone.
Right.
I mean, just like we were saying before we started hitting record, like you, Brian Isbell, and Karen Isbell, and Chris Orr, and Charlie Hall, and a lot of the worship circle family were some of the first phone
Yeah.
calls to go, "Hey, we're dealing with this," and we got to carry both grief and sorrow and anger, and at the same time, hope and excitement about what's to come. And what was wild is I wasn't afraid of what was coming. I just didn't want to, I just didn't like how I felt in that moment. Didn't know how to process it. And I'm a guy that doesn't like to feel negative feelings anyway. I typically run from it. But the Lord was trying to teach me something of what he wanted to show me about himself in that space. And like Janie said, it was a really rich time of his presence with us. It was so abundantly clear. And then here we are in a new context. We knew a year from now, we're not going to be feeling this.
Right.
Like we were kind of trying to allow ourselves to experience what God experiences going, I see both the sorrow and I see the joy at the end. When scripture talks about before the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame. He knew he had to be both present here and there. And so for us, we saw the future. It was hard to walk it. And yet Jesus had done that with us. So we're on the other side of things, and kids and wife are thriving and full speed ahead.
Well, a couple things. I remember you guys calling me from home, and y'all were together. We were on a Zoom call, and I'm just echoing what you're saying, that we can all handle about anything if we've got people with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think the whole loved and not alone thing it's really not just us trying to prop up a statement. It's like, for me personally, I wouldn't have been able to make it through the season I've been on without you guys and the Worship Circle family. It's like, there's names and there's time and there's experience and there's these heaven and earth touching moments we've all been together in. And as life goes on, there'll be more tears, there'll be more grief. And then secondly, the thing that we've all been learning as a community, that I'll just echo for those of you listening, that grief and sorrow, do not bypass those, like feel them. Mm-hmm. Even the anger, let it out. Find a healthy way to process it. Go scream in the woods if you need to. I've got a punching bag in my basement. Let that stuff out, because it's got to go somewhere. And as it goes somewhere, the real ability to forgive and move forward and find joy, healing, and calling come. Yeah. And we're all learning that as a community. And as we're talking, we've been talking about that just as a thought, but you guys have lived it. Yeah. And I can
affirm that. And it wasn't because of my creativity, but I think the God, I don't know if this was God, because I don't want to put this on him, but like when we had to tell our son, he was really mad, really, really mad, and didn't want to change his life. And he's our oldest, and he's at the time
was 14.
Yeah.
He had just turned 14.
Just turned 14. So his life, we knew he was going to take it hard. And so you're right, it had to go somewhere, because he was pinting it up. And so it's like, whether it was a good parent move or not, just this being real and vulnerable, friends. I took him on a walk and said, all right, buddy, for one, this is your moment. You can cuss and say whatever you need to say to get it out. And
that's brilliant.
And he looked at me like, are you sure? Because I got words.
That's awesome, Aaron.
But he got it out. And
he was like the kid in the Christmas Story that got beat up.
Exactly. And he came back different though. And he was
That's so cool that you shared that.
And it's like, whether that was the right call or not, I don't know, but it's like, I knew he had to feel it. I felt it.
You gave him permission to be angry and process that. And that was good.
Well, and we're learning that God can handle our big feelings.
Yeah.
And unless we are able to express those, we're not human. And so I just appreciate you guys sharing today and being vulnerable about this part of your journey, because like we've all gone through, or we will go through, seasons of transition. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you guys, but and I remember talking to you, Aaron, and I think you guys even said this on the call. I think God gave you guys a sense internally that there's things that we get unsatisfied with where we're planted. It's like, something's just not right for me here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And before I've left places, I've felt that sometimes a year or two in advance. Just like there's like a holy discontent. It's like something is not aligning with my calling in my specific lane. And God, I'm like you hoist the sails at that moment. And you're like, when the wind blows, this boat's going.
Yes.
We had said, like, even in that season, as we began to feel things, the term we used is anchors up. Like, we're not moving, we're not going.
That's a great phrase.
We pulled our anchor up and we said, okay, God, like, wherever you want to take this ship, right? Wherever you're going to blow that wind, we're ready. So anchors are up. And so we had known and had sensed that for a long time. I think it's just so hard because the cost, and in ministry the cost is high, in ways that it may not be for other people. It means a move, it means changing your community, it means starting over in relationships, and it's your whole family. It's not just Aaron doing that, it's all of us doing that, and the cost for our kids at that point, because they had never done that. We'd done it before, but at this point, when we moved to Fort Worth, Caden was 2.5.
Yeah.
Brenna was an infant. Sophie was not here. So they had never known anything else. So we, internally knew this was going to be a big faith thing for them as well, to walk through. And I knew it was going to be hard. But what I think is so beautiful, and I hope is encouraging to people, is like, here we are a year and a half in, and God has been so good, like so good, like, provision, in all the ways, relationships that we didn't expect, our kids, and the way that they have been just loved and received, and they have deep friendships that are beautiful to watch. They're growing in their faith, and so it's like, and our kids have all individually at different points told me, I'm so glad we're here.
Wow.
So as hard as it was for all of us, here we are a year and a half into it, and that is how my children feel. That's how we feel. So I mean, it's never fun in the moment. Like, none of that was fun, and there was so much uncertainty for so long.
Yeah.
But here we are, on the other side of it. So,
and for me, thing that I tell people here is what I'm so grateful about for this particular ministry assignment that I'm here at our current church. I am encouraged to be the worship leader I feel like I was made to be here.
Yeah.
In previous contexts, I feel like I was told, don't do that. No, that's too much. That's too intense. That's too whatever, too spiritual, too soon, whatever. Here, it's like they're encouraging it to keep going and do more. And that's like something it's a little foreign to me. I feel like every church should be calling out the leaders to be their truest selves and to lead well. I mean, granted, we're growing, we're going to make mistakes, but like, for me, there's a part of myself that I had never been allowed to show and lead in the way that I feel like God made me until I came here. And now it's just a joy every Sunday. It's ridiculously early. For all of you that are getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I know your pain, but for me, it's like, even though it's so early, it's such a joy to do that every day, because the response of the church is just so great. And to see me being used, we know why we're here. We're here for really good purposes, and just to start even seeing that after a year and a half is a beautiful thing. So we're grateful to the Lord on His kindness to us.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you. Rest Retreat registration goes live the 30th of May, which is in a week. So if all goes well, this episode will air the 23rd of May, 2025. Registration opens the 30th. And one of the things I love about this time is it's not a big thing. Like, there's not a gazillion people there. Space is limited. We have so for those of you listening that haven't ever been before, we have Aaron and Janie will be there to welcome you. So you've already heard from them. This is family, you guys. And so half the people there, a little over half, will be our coaches and the small group people that have been on a journey the whole year. And in a way, it's like coming to a family reunion for all of us, but then you get to come in and be welcomed into the family. And you'll find this year, I think we're going to really lean into the idea of having fun together and laughing together. So I'm really excited about that journey. But yeah, anything y'all want to say? An invitation to all the people on the fence out there?
If you're seriously, do it. It doesn't feel, I understand it may be like, man, I'm walking into a group of strangers. You will not feel that way when you get there. And for the
he'll be there to jump in your car.
I will jump in your car when your Uber drops off, and he'll probably freaking out, going, "What's going on?" But I'll be so excited to hug you.
There you go.
But even still, and to spouses, come. It's for you too.
Yeah.
It is not just limited to the musical people. The Holy Spirit really, I think, really wants to bring some life and vitality to your ministry. This is a great way to do that.
And if you're part of a massive production church where there's lights and smoke and planning center galore, this is not that. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, as the guy that's kind of got the vision for this thing, every year I let go of more, and I find that it just flies even better. You know, it's like I tell people it's fun to go, "Hey, Charlie, can you and Christian and Melody figure out what y'all want to do tonight?" and tell them the day of, and just go, there's no team meeting to decide if that's a good or bad song. It's like there's a principle here where when we trust each other in our gifting, like we already know what to do. Let's just show up and be with God and each other. And so Stone Mountain, worshipcircle.com/rest. Follow us on social media on Instagram, and we're going to hit TikTok soon, ladies and gentlemen. Oh boy, we're going to hit the younger generation. I don't do TikTok, but they say we need to start doing it. So that'll be fun. And we can't wait to see you guys at Stone Mountain October 20 to 22nd. And gosh, we're going to have a lot of fun. The fall in Georgia, you guys can attest to it. It's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty cool. Well, Janie and Aaron, thank you guys for just being my friend. Thank you for leading and loving me on my journey, and for so many of the Worship Circle family and the people that you've served at the church you were at for a decade and the one now. Thanks for your faithfulness to God through the grief, through the sorrow, and also through the joy and celebration. You guys are loved and not alone. So thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We love you.